Today's topic, I'm going to discuss a 403b account and rolling that over into an IRA. So first I'm going to go over what is a 403b account, how that grows, what are some of the benefits, what are some of the negatives to it. Then I'm going to explain what an IRA is or a traditional IRA is for example purposes. What are the benefits of it, what are some of the negatives with it, and then why somebody would want to roll over monies from a 403b account into an IRA, and how to make sure that you're customizing it to a specific retirement planning strategy. So I'm going to explain to you the different areas on what's most important whenever someone's trying to create some sort of retirement plan, and leveraging it for income, leveraging dollars for growth, leveraging dollars for inheritance maximization, leveraging dollars for tax maximization, tax optimization. So there's a few different things. At any point in time, if you ever want to speak with a specialist, feel free to give a 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. Make sure to reference this video, and we'll make sure that the correct advisor is set up for your consultation. So what is a 403b account? And a 403b account is an employer-sponsored retirement plan. So an example of this is when an individual is working for either a state institution, they may be working for a church, a nonprofit. Instead of being offered a 401k, which is set up for private institutions, they're offered 403b. So it's typically through the state. What happens is when somebody starts work, they're given their employee benefits package, and it says, okay, you're going to make X amount of dollars in salary. You're going to have this much in disability insurance, this much in health insurance. And then also we have this 403b retirement account set up for you that you could go and start putting monies away for your retirement savings. So the way on how this sort of account, or think of it like a bucket, grows is by the contributions that somebody's placing into the plan and the rate of return that's coming back. So let's say that you're working for a company, and as an example, you make $100,000 in a given year. After reading through your employee benefits package, you understand that if you contribute monies into your 403b account, there's going to be something known as a match, meaning that the employer is going to be giving you matching money into this sort of account. So if, let's say, the match is up to 5%, 100% up to 5%, and you put $5,000 contribution into this account, the employer is also going to match you $5,000 of contribution. So $10,000 would have been the total contributions for that year. $5,000 from you, $5,000 from the employer, and that was matched. So whatever your dollar amount was up to that percentage, that was a full match. If, let's say, you put $6,000, even though the match was up to $5,000, then you would only be getting $5,000. So it doesn't go anything above what that percentage is. And that's a large misconception. A lot of people think that if they put 100% of whatever their money is into it, they're going to get 100% matching monies on that. It's not the case. There's going to be some sort of cap limitation on that. But case in point is the contribution side is the controllables, or are the controllables. So that's how much you can control, how much you're placing into that account. So these dollars are obviously adding positives into your bucket. Now, the opposite side of the coin is the rate of return. So these are the different investment options that somebody could choose within their 403b account. So when looking underneath the hood, you're saying, okay, I have this 403b, I'm placing monies into it, it's giving me a match, which is obviously good things, but I'm looking at these investment options, and there's only about 10 to 25 on average investment options that I could choose. So there's only so much juice that you could squeeze out of these investment options. You could have higher quality, lower cost if, let's say, you went elsewhere, you open up a brokerage account or you open up an IRA account, or whatever that case is. The 403b, as good as it is for the matching money and for the free monies, it could limit you when it comes to this rate of return side, because there's limitations to what sort of investments are in there. If, let's say, you're super conservative and you just want to sit into a fixed fund, you might have one stable value fund that's sitting in there, or you might only have a couple of bond funds that's sitting in there. If, let's say, you want to be more aggressive and you want to be more technical with how you're creating your different allocation strategies, you might only have a few different aggressive funds or some moderate portfolios, or maybe just target date funds. So it's going to be limited with the amount of options available. So therefore, it could translate to the limitations on the growth potential or the protection potential off of this rate of return side. So if we look at that formula, contributions and rate of return equals what your account balance is. So if, let's say, somebody's going and they're adding in a bunch of money, and they're doing this for 20, 30 years, and their 403b account balance is sitting at $1 million, but the rate of return, the investments, let's say somebody's very aggressive and they're invested with the stock market, and the stock market drops 20%, they would drop, their portfolio would drop 20% that year. So it didn't matter how much contributions they made into that plan, that negative on the rate of return side could be a detriment to that bucket. And on the opposite side of that, the rate of return could obviously be a positive to that bucket. Could, if it grew 20%, then you could have that 20% of $200,000 gain into your bucket. So this is where when somebody is nearing retirement or they're trying to accumulate their dollars for retirement, they want to make sure that they have a maximized strategy when it comes to the contribution side, understanding if they're placing dollars in there, what is the match? If there's no match, does it still make sense to place dollars in there into that 403b account? Or maybe they're eligible, an individual's eligible for a Roth 403b account, so the monies could grow tax-free, they could pull their monies out tax-free. The opposite side is the rate of return. So this is really based on somebody's risk tolerance. If somebody's more risk tolerant, then typically they could be more aggressive. If, let's say, somebody has a longer time horizon, that typically means that they could be more aggressive with their portfolios, because if the market's going to ebb and flow, and historically the market should have some sort of upward trajectory, that's going to, an individual could take on more risk if, let's say, they're 20 years out from retirement than if they're only 2 years out from retirement, where if that drop occurs and they're very close to hitting that retirement stage and start actually taking distributions from their bucket, that could be a problem. So we understand the benefits of a 403b account are the contributions that somebody could place into that plan and the matching money that they could receive from their employer. If it's a traditional 403b account, any of their contributions are going to be tax deductible. So if, let's say, they put $5,000 into that bucket and the company matched them $5,000, because their specific contribution, their individual contribution was $5,000, they're able to get a tax deduction off of that $5,000. They're not getting a $10,000 tax deduction. So it's going to be $5,000 on that. Now, the government does this as pre-tax retirement accounts, pre-tax qualified retirement accounts. You're going to receive the tax deduction now. The monies are going to grow with the power of compound interest inside of that account, tax deferred, so that when it comes time that you hit your retirement years and you start actually taking distributions or withdrawals, you're going to be fully taxed on those monies. So it's not that the government's so nice that they're saying, oh, here you go, you're going to get a tax deduction, you're going to be able to grow all this money in there, and then when it comes time for retirement, you'll still be able to pull those monies out tax-free. It doesn't work like that. Because they're giving you a tax deduction, when it comes time to pull those monies out, that's when you're going to have to pay taxes on every dollar that's coming out of that. So we understand the contribution is obviously a positive to it. The rate of return is how this grows. So if the rate of return is coming back positive, that's obviously good. If it's coming back negative, that's obviously bad. The rate of return, this could be a detriment, or the investment options could be a detriment with 403b accounts, because you're limited with only 10 to 25, typically 10 to 20, 10 to 30 different eggs in your basket to choose, different investment options to choose. So there's only so much juice that you could squeeze out of those investment options. You're basically handcuffed to, these are my options, these are the only ones I could pick, and hopefully everything works out based on what my risk tolerance is, based on my guessing on picking the right one. So that's how a 403b account works. Now, an IRA account, or a traditional IRA account, just like a traditional 403b, they're very similar. It works by that same sort of formula. It goes by contributions that somebody's placing into the plan and the rate of return that's coming back. Now, because it's an IRA, an individual retirement account, if somebody's adding contributions into this account, they're not getting a match. The match is only set up through employers, because you're not going to be matching yourself. So let's say if somebody goes and they're putting away $5,000 into a traditional IRA account, that's obviously adding positives to that bucket, but there is no match. So there's limitations on how much you can contribute, and then really the optimization of that contribution side. Now, on the opposite side, we understand with the 403b, the detriment was the limiting funding options in there. So typically about the 10 to 25 different investment options that somebody could choose. With an IRA, you have thousands of different investment options that you could choose, and thousands of different customization options that you could leverage on this rate of return side. So let's say if somebody was super aggressive, well, now they have hundreds and hundreds of different options available to say, okay, I want to cherry pick this no-load mutual fund. I want to utilize this specific company, this something that has very low cost, high quality, or maybe I'm more moderate. I want to have more of a moderate blend, so I could really cherry pick. These are the best fixed related accounts for my position that I could go elsewhere. I'm not just handcuffed to those 10 to 25 different options. So really, it allows an individual to optimize this rate of return side, which obviously will still grow whenever those investments go up, and it will still go down whenever those investments drop. But if, let's say, somebody wanted to, from what I'm talking about customization wise, let's say somebody only wanted to go into fixed accounts, and they say, I understand that interest rate environment is slowly increasing, so I want to take advantage of that, and I want to create my IRA in a bank CD or a fixed annuity or something along those lines that will give you some sort of fixed rate of return for X amount of years. You could do that within an IRA account. Or you could be as aggressive as, I want to, invest in one individual stock. I want to put all my money into one Apple stock or, one Google stock, whatever that case is. So you could really have that flexibility based on your risk tolerance, based on how you want to create your IRA account. Once again, a recap, it goes by contributions and rate of return. The contributions on an IRA account is limited if you're below the age of 50. It's limited to, and this is going off of 2023 tax code, is limited to $6,500 per individual per year. If, let's say, you're above the age of 50, it's $7,500 per year. So if you're making a bunch of money and maybe you're playing catch up and you want to really max contribute into a plan, you're going to have limitations towards that specific IRA account, where if you go into a 403b account, you have a higher contribution limitation with the 403b account. But really the downside to the IRA is there's no match and you're capped on your contributions. The benefit of the IRA is that you have unlimited thousands of different customization options from that rate of return side, or how you want to create these types of IRAs so that you could utilize the IRAs as individual pieces in a puzzle. So why would somebody want to do 403b rollovers into an IRA? And the simple answer comes down to optimization. With a 403b account, we know that the limitations come down to that rate of return side or those investment options that somebody could choose. The benefits of an IRA is that you have pretty much unlimited customization options. The downside to an IRA, if let's say you're trying to contribute, are those contribution limitations. With the 403b, that's the upside, is knowing that you could put a larger contribution into a 403b account, and then also you could get matching money into a 403b account. So you could utilize these two tools. If you think about each individual bucket like a tool, you could utilize these two tools for a optimized retirement planning strategy. Whenever you're thinking of an IRA, and this is very important to note, I mentioned that it grows by the contribution somebody's placing into the plan and the rate of return side. When somebody goes and takes money from a 403b, so if you think of that 403b bucket, and they do a rollover, a 403b account is a pre-tax qualified retirement account. An IRA is a pre-tax qualified retirement account. So what's happening is they're not taking their monies and removing it from the 403b and just dumping in their checking savings account. That would result in potentially penalties. That would result in full taxation. What they're doing is they're keeping it within like-to-like terms. Also, a contribution is not the same as a rollover or a transfer. And what I mean by that is, let's say if you have a 403b account that's sitting at $500,000. And I said with a traditional IRA, the most that you could contribute into a given year is, let's say if you're above the age of 50, would be $7,500. You could do a full $500,000 rollover into an IRA because it's a rollover. It's not a contribution. So in that example, that individual, let's say if they were eligible for an in-service 403b rollover and they had $500,000 in their 403b account, they rolled that entire thing over into an IRA, they can now customize this IRA as per what their specific goals are. Their new balance on their IRA would be $500,000 if, let's say, they just created an IRA. Their new balance on their 403b account would be $0, but it does not affect the contribution side if they're still placing monies into their 403b account. Because let's say if somebody makes $100,000 in a given year and their match is up to 5% and they're putting away $5,000 into their 403b account, the company's still matching them $5,000. It didn't matter if that account was $500,000 or it was $0 or $1. That match and the contribution are going to be different than what the actual total account balance is. So you could almost do a reset as you have you basically preserved your monies. You're now taking those dollars that you've accumulated, you're putting it on a more customized trajectory or better trajectory that will better suit or better accomplish your goals, your retirement planning goals, while you could still create a new accumulation strategy for however many years you have left before you do hit your ideal retirement date. So you're basically taking one account and you're creating two separate accounts from it, making sure that you're able to leverage the benefits of the 403b, which we understand is the contribution maximization, and you're able to leverage the benefits of an IRA, which we know is really that rate of return maximization, or the customization maximization. So then the next question that comes to play is, what do I do with that IRA? How do I actually, create some sort of customized blend to make sure that it could correlate to what my goals are? And first off, you have to understand the different types of accounts and where they lie from a safety aspect, from an income aspect, and then from a growth aspect, and then create an actual strategy, create a plan. So when I'm talking about the different accounts that somebody could go into, you have safety, you have income, and you have growth. Safety related accounts are going to be accounts that you want to have safe that are essentially liquid. So these are typically going to be your bank related accounts. So your checking, your savings, your money market, maybe your shorter term bank CD related accounts. Something that is, you're not necessarily fixated on the rate of return. You just want to make sure that you could access your monies in case of an, oh my gosh, in case that emergency situation was to occur. So there's a time and a place for those sorts of accounts, and there's specific portions of dollars that should be allocated to those specific accounts. The other types of accounts are income related accounts. So these are going to be different accounts or different sorts of investments that could generate some sort of income. This is where you would have your stock dividends. This is where you would have your bonds. This is where you could leverage annuities for lifetime income streams, which you have to be very careful when it comes to annuities because you have hundreds and hundreds of options available, and majority of them could be detriments to an individual situation, while only a few could really be beneficial for an individual situation. You have REITs, real estate investment trusts. Also, if let's say you've owned property and you're getting rental income from those properties, that could also be considered as an income-related asset. And those are really the plethora of the income-related accounts. So we understand the safety accounts, we understand the income-related accounts. Then you have the growth-related accounts, and those are really everything else. Monies that, if you've already created your income strategy and you've already created your safety strategy, that's how an individual is able to properly retire. Because if you don't have income in retirement, then you don't have a retirement. When you're able to segment your dollars towards the safety and the income-related buckets or income-related strategies, anything that you don't have to use up for your income or your safety play can now be leveraged towards your growth play, towards monies that could ebb and flow, and you could take on a little bit more risk, because if those go down, it's not going to hurt you from your overall planning perspective. From, I have X amount of expenses coming to me every single month, every single year throughout my retirement. I need to make sure that I'm at least creating a strategy for that baseline. Everything else is cherry on top. So this is where some growth-related accounts would be mutual fund-related accounts, some growth-related stocks, some different moderate-based portfolios, some ETFs, some of your more speculative investments like cryptocurrencies. You could leverage some of your longer-term bonds with it, or longer-term annuities like fixed indexed annuities for that. Something that you're not going to be able to touch right out the gate, but something that has, the longer that you're in there, could have some sort of a consistent growth strategy created with that. So the whole multitude of different things in those growth-related buckets. But by making sure that you're segmenting your accounts into safety, income, and growth, it allows you to build out your retirement picture in a more beautiful scenario, and allows you to correlate it to what's most important to you, and then how to accomplish those needs most successfully. If you try to place too many dollars towards one of these areas, it could be a detriment. Like as an example, if you're trying to create an income strategy, but you threw all your money into safety, that could be a problem. Or you threw all your money into growth, that could be a problem. Same thing, if you're trying to leverage growth-related accounts and say, I just want to grow these monies, I want to be at the pace of inflation, I want to make sure that I'm leaving an inheritance maximization, and you're trying to use safety accounts or income-related accounts, that could be a detriment. That's where you would want to leverage growth-related needs. Vice versa. If let's say you need to, you want to utilize some sort of safety aspect, I need to have an emergency fund in case of an oh my gosh moment was to occur, you're probably not going to want to leverage those income-related strategies and those growth-related strategies. You want something that's liquid, something that's safe. And that's really, by segmenting those out, it allows you to basically stick it into an optimized lane. And be mindful, safety accounts, income accounts, and growth-related accounts, those are nothing more than portfolios. If you don't have a sort of plan in place, well, then they could be meaningless. They could not be optimized correctly, and you could be wasting thousands of dollars in the wrong direction. Or worst case scenario, you could burn through all your money and have to go back to work when you're in your 70s, your 80s, your 90s, or have significant decrease in your expenses. So an easy way to create some sort of strategy is by using the acronym of DIET, D-I-E-T. First off, you want to make sure that you have a distribution plan in place saying that what are my expenses right now? What are my expenses going to be at my ideal retirement age? And then what are those expenses going to be from retirement age until ultimately date of death? What are the pieces that you have right now? Like, what are some of the different things that you're doing right now beyond accumulation strategy? So are you starting to now reduce maybe your exposure and create, if you think of them as like individual pieces on a chessboard, are you creating your strategic moves effectively to say, okay, when I hit this age, this is when I'm going to trigger income. When I hit this age, this is how much I have an emergency need. When I hit this age, this is how much that I'm going to be leaving over to beneficiaries on my growth-related strategy. So the D in DIET stands for distribution planning. The I stands for investment planning. The E stands for estate planning, and then the T stands for tax planning. Each area needs to be efficient. Really, the most important areas is going to be your distribution and your investment related phase, or your growth related planning stage. And by optimizing those two, it gives you those baselines. It's like the old story that the house that was built on sand got swept away as opposed to the house that was built on rock. You want to make sure that you have that baseline is built on rock and is secure and protected. So that's where, with distribution planning, you also want to look at what your assets are. So if you have X amount of dollars of expenses, what are your income sources going to be coming to you in retirement? Is it Social Security? Are you offered a pension plan? Are you going to be receiving some sort of inheritance? Are you receiving income from rental properties? What are your income sources versus your expenses? If there's a specific gap there, where now it says, okay, my income in retirement, when I stop working, I'm not going to have enough income that will accomplish what my expenses are. Now I have to start taking from my savings, taking from my assets, from my accumulated assets, and make sure that that's created in some sort of strategy. The I stands for, obviously, investment or growth planning. So any dollars that you don't have to use up for your distribution planning needs, that's where you could utilize as your fund monies, as your cherry on top, as the monies that say, okay, these are dollars that it's more of that splurge account. If it does well, excellent, I'll take an extra trip. If it does poorly, it's not going to affect my overall baseline. The E stands for for estate planning, for individuals that want to make sure that they're leaving some sort of inheritance maximization, or inheritance in case I pass away, I want to make sure my spouse is okay. In case both me and my spouse pass away, I want to make sure they are okay. My kids, my grandkids, whatever that case might be. And then the T of tax planning really encompasses everything with financial planning. You could leverage proper tax planning on the distribution side, on the investment growth side, on the estate planning side. And it really, based on what is most important to an individual, is where they should focus in on the DIET off of their retirement diet process. It's obviously something that we help out individuals do on a daily basis. We help them out all throughout the country. So some individuals like to do it themselves, and they just want to understand that, okay, they have to see some sort of map, and they want to make sure that what they're doing right now is the correct path, or are there certain tweaks that they should be making on their own and doing that. Or other individuals, majority of individuals that just say, you know what, I've worked my entire life in X amount of occupation. I do not want to deal with this. I do not know how all these different components work. And then that's where, an agency such as ourselves would help out an individual in their situation. So in closing, if you found value in this video, you want to speak with an advisor, simply give our 1-800 number a call. It's 1-800-566-1002. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Retire Sharp, so you can have access to the most updated videos. Thanks so much, guys.